Hey, Melissa Lieberman here, business coach for independent consultants. And today I wanted to share with you a common phenomenon that I find as I dive into work with my private clients and we start uncovering all the layers of their business. We start uncovering pockets where they're undercharging. And so I'm assuming if you're an independent consultant, you could be experiencing the same challenge as well, because I see it almost always across the board in some way where you're undercharging. So today I want to share with you 5 methods that you can use to figure out if this is the case for you, if you're undercharging. So let's dive into those 5 and hopefully you can apply this to your business and start figuring out if you're undercharging. And then ultimately what I'll share with you next week, what you can start doing about it. Okay. So with that, let's talk about undercharging. It's like that gut punch feeling when you realize you thought everything was going great. And then you get some piece of information and you realize, oh shit, I've been undercharging. I didn't even realize it. Or maybe you realize it and you've just been putting off doing something about it. So let's go figure out what it might, those methods for you, so you can go figure out for you in your business if you are undercharging and where. So the first thing that you want to look at is, what is the market telling you? Some of you have more work than you can handle. And so you're kind of got you're doing the business. It's like you had a storefront and you're doing business in the store, but the door is closed. The shades are down. You're like, I can't take on any more work. And so you're not open to business. Essentially, you're not open to exploring what else is out there and continuing your business development process. And as a result, you could be undercharging because you're turning away, before they even come to you, really good projects, and not thinking about your business as a business and how you might take on more work in different ways and increase your prices because in your rate structures, because you've got more demand than the supply of your time. You're not even allowing that in. So look at what the market is telling you. If you're either one of 2 things, you have got more work than you can handle, that's telling you that that this is an opportunity to start raising your pricing structures. Either because you literally have more work than you can handle, or you've closed the door to business because you don't even want to entertain more work. Those are the 2 dynamics where you've got more work than you can handle. That's a great indicator that you've got opportunity to increase the way that you are calculating your rate structures, your pricing structures. The second way that you can look at what the market is telling you is to test it. Most of us don't even test the market. We don't want to be told no, and we definitely don't want to negotiate. Almost every consultant I talk to is like, I hate negotiating. Let's just avoid that. Put a price, put a rate structure in place that someone will say yes to, and keep moving, right? But if you're not testing the market and getting an occasional no, then you could be very well leaving money on the table. So ask yourself, where have I tested the market in the past? Where have I tested the market lately? Where have I had a no, or that doesn't quite align to what I was expecting? And then you can have that conversation with with your consulting client about what makes the most sense for the value and dive into that conversation. So if you're not getting some form of pushback, that's a great indicator that you could be undercharging. Okay, number 2, look at the way you calculated your rates or your project fees, or the way you're building up your value-based pricing, however you're pricing. Look at the way you're calculating those. Are you calculating them based on the value and the results, and taking that into account with the ROI and what the end qualitative and quantitative results for your clients will be? The value of the work that you're doing over time. Think about that. For the value of the work that you're doing for your clients, what does the next 5 years of return on investment mean for them? And so the value of the work that you're doing, like, then when you think about the work that you're doing, it's almost a no-brainer what you might be, putting in front of them from a pricing proposal perspective. So have you taken that in those value and those results into account as you're developing your pricing? Or have you calculated your fees based on some calculation of like, here's what I made in corporate, or here's what I would be making in corporate if I were still there, and adding some burden onto it because now you're self-employed, and creating that as your rate card, or the basis of your pricing? Look at the way you're calculating your rates, and you could be undercharging if you're not taking the ultimate outcome and value into account. If you're just literally kind of taking yourself down to this calculation of what you might have been making in corporate, that's irrelevant from a consulting perspective. The other way I see this showing up, and when you put this method into place, looking at the way you calculate your rates, think about when you build up your pricing. So you might even be taking value into account. Think about the way you build up your pricing, and then ask yourself, do you look at it and say, oh, freeze, it's too much, right? Oh, I added all this up. It's too much. I better reduce this to something more realistic. And so you cut the number of expected hours, you cut some rates that that you've built up your proposal against. You cut it down into what you think is reasonable without even having talked to the client to begin with about, triangulating on what they're expecting versus and what the value is that they see in this process. So again, the second opportunity for you to uncover whether or not you're undercharging is to look at that way that you're calculating your project proposal and rates, and figure out what opportunity is there. Where are you discounting yourself? The third method you can use to figure out if you're undercharging is to ask yourself, when is the last time you increased your project rates? When is the last time you increased your fees? If the answer is, I don't know, or the answer is, I'm not, it's been a while, and the answer is not after my last project, then you could very well have some opportunity here. That's an easy way to figure out if you're undercharging. Generally speaking, increasing your rates incrementally project over project is a very good practice to get into, because you're incrementally adding value. You're incrementally adding more experience and best practice to your tool belt. Okay. The fourth way is to research regularly. So the method to uncover if you're undercharging is to do some research. Don't be afraid to ask your colleagues. A lot of times talking about money is taboo, but you're missing out on such an opportunity to figure out and kind of triangulate against other people who might be doing something similar to what you're doing. You're not competitors. There's so much work out there. Sharing that kind of information can be really valuable. I always like to look at my own business as a detective and use that as research data points too. Like looking at the results you're delivering and quantifying them after the fact, right? At the end of a project, quantitatively, qualitatively, what has the value been that I've delivered to the clients? How would I put a price on this? How would I put a value, a number, not a price, a number on this? How would I put a number on the results that I deliver for the clients? Could be easy to quantify, or it might be more qualitative and you've got to do some guessing. But using that as a way, project over project over project, to build up your own arsenal of data points is incredibly valuable, and help you to uncover where you might have undercharged in the past so that you can rectify that. And then the fifth area, I'm going to add one more. So number 5, we'll do 6 today. Number 5 is, ask yourself, how do you see yourself as you're setting up the project pricing? This is so important. If you're thinking of yourself as another cog in the wheel, as you're thinking of yourself as a project manager or a program manager, kind of some of the functions that you might be doing in the capacities you're serving in the project, you're thinking of yourself as kind of the lowest common denominator of what you're bringing to the table, versus thinking of yourself as, I'm a strategic advisor who's accumulated 15 or 20 years of knowledge that the client is benefiting from. and building your pricing from that mindset versus building the pricing from the mindset of I'm just a project manager at heart. So think about how are you seeing yourself as you're setting up this project pricing. And then finally, number 6 is ask yourself, where are you not charging at all for work that you're doing? I see this a lot with clients. Well, I didn't charge them for this thing because it's just easier to do it than to have a conversation about scope changes. Or, well, I didn't charge them for all the steps that I do to get them on, started as a client, and all that pre-work because it's just the cost of doing business. Whatever it is that you are justifying for yourself, ask yourself, how is this valuable for the client, and how should this be baked into my process? And start recovering that. Another way is I see clients all the time like, I just wrote that off. I didn't invoice it in a timely manner, so I'm just going to eat that. I should be better at my invoicing processes. Well, probably, but also why is the first thing that you kind of defer to is like, I'll just kind of eat that thing and do better next time. If that's you, this is another way that you could be undercharging, as you are not accounting for everything that you're doing for the clients and the results that you're getting for them. So those are the 6 ways that you could be undercharging, 6 methods of how to find out if you're undercharging rather. And so go look at that for your own business. I would also invite you to subscribe to my weekly newsletter. So I know there's thousands of newsletters going on right now in LinkedIn, but I have created the Independent Consultant, which is a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn with this type of knowledge and expertise that you can actionable. That's the word I was looking for. Actionable tips and strategies so that you can bring your consulting business to the next level and make more money and more impact and have more freedom as you're delivering for your clients, this immense value that you have to offer them. So I just put the link in the comments. Go and subscribe to the Independent Consultant so that you get these tips that I share every week in writing. And then also I have a podcast called the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. And I just share the link to episode 50 where I dive into this content there as well. So you can go read the newsletter, listen to it on audio on the podcast, and of course, come on Fridays. Most Fridays where I provide this what I call the IC stand up. So my goal here is to help you work on your business and step aside from working in your business all the time so that you can increase that impact. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.